A judge is expected to decide whether an agreement that closed Cobb County's Sterigenics plant was legal. The plant entered this agreement with the State Environmental Protection Division. The judge heard a challenge to that agreement today. 11 Live's Doug Richards is live in downtown Atlanta with more. Doug?
Well, Cheryl, this is about whether or not the state of Georgia and its Environmental Protection Division should have entered into a legal agreement with Sterigenics without giving the public input first. The Sterigenics plant in Cobb County, just across from the city of Atlanta, is closed now, and there's evidence outside of construction underway as the plant tries to comply with state and county restrictions on its use of ethylene oxide. That, of course, is a cancer-causing gas that the plant uses to sterilize medical equipment and which has leaked into the atmosphere at times outside the plant. So the plant first closed in August under an agreement with the state. In court today, an attorney for residents said that the state should have held public hearings on the agreement before it was enacted.
And instead, under the cover of night, in 19 days, they entered an order with Sterigenics. And we're here today about, operating in the sunlight and letting the public in a situation that really impacts the public be heard. And it's that simple.
Attorney Cale Conley lives near Sterigenics. He says that he has found 20 cases of cancer in one of the neighborhoods nearby. Sterigenics remains shut down because Cobb County has kept it closed. The state agreement is at issue in the court hearing that happened today. An attorney for the state argued that a legal technicality made Conley's motion improper to address the issue. The judge in the case is Fulton Superior Court Judge Henry Newkirk. He indicated to the two sides that he may issue a ruling as early as December 23rd in a case that has roiled for weeks here on the public stage in Cobb County, the city of Atlanta, and beyond. Back to you.
All right, Doug, thank you. Need a refresher on how we got to this point? We have a full breakdown of the lawsuit on our website at 11alive.com.